Are we live? We are live. Oh, look at that. I was confused. Hello and welcome to the Darkside with Tabitha Purple and TC Storm. We are here today to give you the dark side of life, and there is always a dark side. Just until Jesus comes, there will be a dark side, and we will find it and we will discuss it. So this is what we're doing today. How are you doing today, Mr. Storm?
I'm great.
Good. We're in standard answer mode. Welcome to the dark side. Right. Well, today we are going to discuss 3 news stories off the bat, as we always do, and then we're going to get into our topic for this evening, which is strangely light for the dark side. We're looking at nursery rhymes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, strangely light. Okay. All right. So, shall we look at our first news story for today?
Go for it.
Okay, the first news story this week that caught my attention was Ghislaine Maxwell. It's the trial of the ex-girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein. We're finally getting some prosecution times and details, which is really great. It started this week. Of course, she is charged with trafficking charges of a minor and conspiracy to commit crime, to conspiracy to traffic, among other things. She's the only person that is being tried in this case, actually, because of course Epstein died, and so it feels like the weight of all of his and his friends' criminal actions are now coming down to bear on her. It's really interesting. I didn't know much about the case, to be honest, other than they kept sending for Prince Andrew regularly to be out there and to report to American law enforcement, and that was constantly denied. So that's about as much as I knew. And I didn't really know anything about Ghislaine Maxwell, so I did some digging. It turns out she is an Oxford-educated 9th child of the disgraced Robert Maxwell, the media mogul. She worked for Epstein, although in his pre-trial information and his stuff, he said that she was never a paid employee. So there's some dispute as to whether it's girlfriend, best friend, not paid. But the people who are bringing the complaints against her and the charges against her say that she's basically a madam, and she recruits, grooms, and gets young girls, children ready for the exploits of rich and famous men. Yeah, it's an interesting story. Your silence is confusing me.
You were talking.
Well, I'm finished now.
Okay. Well, I think I like your choice of words in saying that Epstein died.
I was very careful.
Yes.
It's a source of controversy, so he's dead. So
Yeah.
that's a statement of fact.
So he died. Yes.
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 Yeah.
I appreciate the choice of words there. Um, Look, they say there's no smoke without fire. Yeah. I mean, let's just talk about Bill Cosby, right? When allegation after allegation started to come out, all these people queued up to say there's no smoke without fire. Well, I'm just saying there's numerous allegations against Maxwell and those who she has named or who have been named within this court case or surrounding this court case. Prince Andrew. So yeah, it just seems that we should be keeping that same energy we had for Bill Cosby, and rightly so, for Maxwell and the other named parties within this case. Prince Andrew. Um, you know, so yeah, I'm all for keeping that energy around them. Look, that's the reality, and birds of a feather flock together. That's another saying, that I've been hearing since I was a child. Be careful who you hang out with. All of these things. Well, these people are adults. So at best, if you were not partaking in it, you at best knew or had suspicions about it
Mm.
and did nothing.
Mm.
For me, that makes you just as culpable.
Yeah, and that's the case that's being brought. Is she the madam? Is she the brothel runner? Is she the person who procured children for this task and procured young women for this task? Or is she the person who turned a blind eye? And I think a lot of this case will rest on that, the nuance of that discussion. I think that the element that feels quite sickening, of course, is that there are young people and children who have suffered the effects of these people's criminality, and will never be able to shake that off. And the best that we can do is offer, the justice system, the best that it can do is offer this particular case in which rich people get to play politics. And I think that that's really sad. And it's a shame that politics comes into it as much as it does when it comes to the rich, white, and famous.
Yeah, well, I think this is the sad thing. I think we're going to see affluenza get her off again, or get her off. I think it's going to raise its head in this case. But the sad thing is, we all know that had you been a poor person,
Mm.
and often we talk about race in these conversations, but the reality is, had you just been a poor person, you'd already be in jail. You'd
Yeah.
already have been convicted. Listen, if they could give you the death sentence for it, you'd probably be, halfway down the chamber to be executed by now.
Yeah.
And so I think we just all need to just acknowledge that fact that money is playing a massive part in what's happening so far.
Well, most definitely. And as you say, there are some named parties who have been exempted from almost being charged, being interrogated, being questioned because they are royalty, because they have influence, because they were former presidents, because, and I think that all of those things are coming to play into this moment. And I think that people alternate between, should she be the scapegoat for this criminality? And I think, no, she should be culpable for what she did. And if there are others that need to be charged, we should charge those people. And that's the reality. It's not making her a scapegoat. If she did what she did, charge her, prosecute her, convict her, lock her up. And if they did what they did, charge them. They don't get to be exempt because of their wealth status.
Yeah.
That you don't get to commit crimes and just be like, oh, well, I'm rich and famous, so I don't have to participate in legal processes.
Look, the reality is, we all know Andrew will never see the inside of a courtroom. The minute that looked like happening, he get the Diana treatment because nobody is more important than the institution.
Well, there's that. So before we say anything that incriminates us, we're going to move on to the next story, which sadly is linked. This week was a really trying week because there were a lot of stories surrounding the abuse of children. And a big case for the United States is the Duggar case. If you don't know the Duggar family, they are part of the ATI movement. I'd never heard of it before. I didn't know what it was. They're the family behind 19 Kids and Counting and a subsequent show, Counting On. They're a family that profess a belief in some sort of Christian system. I don't want to go into too much of whether I agree with that or not, but that's their profession. But they are in this ATI movement, and one of their children, one of the sons, Josh Duggar, is on trial. He has been the charges are being pressed for receiving and possessing child sexual abuse material. But this is to the backdrop of another trial involving the Duggars at exactly the same time at which Josh is the center of that trial. And I didn't realize that because everyone's focused here, but he admitted and openly admitted that when he was a teenager, he molested 5 little girls, 4 of which were his sisters. And in the process of that admission, of course, because the children were minors, because the girls were minors, their names were hidden. But Under Freedom of Information Act, the press got hold of the names of the 4 sisters because he has 19 siblings. So which 4 sisters was it? And the 4 sisters were named. And so the 4 sisters have taken charges against the sheriff's department to say that what they did was wrong, to have their names to be named publicly because they were children and they should never have been named. And so this case of him possessing child pornography is set to the backdrop of that case actually going to trial at the same time, where he's not being prosecuted for his criminal actions that he confessed to doing, but the girls are prosecuting the sheriff's office, which revealed their names. It's a very twisted thing. There are some interesting points of this case because there are things that I didn't know existed even. Being European, I had no idea that some of these things existed. So how did they find out he had this pornography things? One of the conditions of his treatment for the incident, the prior incident, is that he had to install a program on his computer called Covenant Eyes. Never heard of it before, but it basically lets you pick an accountability partner, which should not be your spousal partner. It needs to be somebody who can hold you accountable, and they will be sent a report of any sites that you visit, any images that you download, anything that remotely looks like pornography or anything that you shouldn't be into. And it's called Covenant Eyes. Now, how he got around this system is that he installed a partition on his computer, and on the Linux half of his computer, that partition side, he was accessing porn, and his defense is that it was a work computer, so other people had access, although it's proven that no one else had access to that computer according to the prosecution service. That's everybody who had access, or he claims had access, because he denies the case, all have alibis. And so the only person that could have done what it is him. But they installed a partition, and the accountability partner, believe it or not, for his Covenant Eyes is his wife, which in the ATI movement would not be somebody who could hold you accountable, because they are a patriarchal society movement in which, think the worst end of full-on misogyny, where women have no agency, no ability to say anything. The jury have been warned repeatedly by the judge, by the prosecution, that they are probably going to need counseling after this, because the images that they will see are horrifying and disturbing, and the warnings every single day that the jury are dealing with, the material is really extreme and it's not good. I found this story to be disturbing, to say the least, of course, but what it reminds us of is how damaging the patriarchy can be, because I think that people think, oh, but just him being the head of the household, what's the issue? But there's a whole litany of failures that it has done in this situation to empower this young man to be able to feel like he can get away with his his criminal behavior. And on record, basically, when they went to arrest him, he laughed and said, "Oh, are you here because of the child pornography?" and just laughed at it. And that's what they admitted into evidence this week. It's disgusting. It's awful. I don't know. It's just...
Well, actually, I just want to pull you up, because I didn't know what the name of the program was the software was in this case. But actually, you had heard about it
Oh, have I?
2 years ago, because it came up in a conversation you and I had, because it was a piece of software in another case that it came up, and you mentioned it to me. And I said to you that, yes, from a tech perspective, I said to you that there are many ways around it. From a tech perspective. And I remember explaining to you that it doesn't actually keep anyone safe.
Yeah.
And it seems as though what I said, Duggar actually found some of the loopholes to get around it. Here's the thing. For just the simple fact that his hard drive was partitioned, somebody would have needed administrative access for that.
Yes. And the argument is that if to access the partitioned part, you actually had to be on site at the local computer. You couldn't have remote accessed it, which was his argument. Oh, it could be remote access. But according to the texts that were testifying and explaining it, actually, no, in this case, you would have had to have been local to access it. And that's where the alibi comes in, because the people that are said to have, he's claiming, accessed it or have alibis and were nowhere near the computer. So yeah, it's a disturbing story. The fact that it involves incest, it involves abuse, it involves child abuse. And you know what's really sickening for me is the parents' refusal to testify against him, damning their daughters to forever being victims of their son, is horrifying. I can imagine that as a parent, you don't want to testify against your own child, but you've just told 4 daughters that they mean nothing to you because you refuse to testify against your son and have him held to account for the crime he committed against your daughters, because somehow that would make it all better. You're invalidating their life experience. It's just horrifying.
Yeah, well, I mean, from my understanding of ATI, and I could be wrong here, but you're absolutely right in what you say regarding the patriarchal nature of it. And I think that when you look at what's happening to the daughters, that you're talking about a biblical equivalent will be, or the treatment similar to that, you're talking about, the injustice, will be Jehoshaphat's daughters, Milcah, and the other two. Yeah, and the other one. In which
there were 5 of them, so
okay, yeah, 5 of them, fine. But the concept that they could not seek justice, the system just was not built to give them justice. And from my understanding of the ATI movement is that it's very patriarchal, and the ability for women to seek justice within the system is actually very limited. Their voices
doesn't
and
exist.
rights are actually quite limited. So there's that. And I think the other thing is we need to just understand that the man has sexual issues, because you're talking about the court cases, right? He's claiming to be a Christian, right? But we know he has a history of abusing children.
Right.
Okay. But we also know he has other sexual issues, because he was also, it came out with the Ashley Madison. When the details of members of Ashley Madison were leaked, his name was on the list. He came up in that.
Oh gosh.
So we know
he's just everywhere.
So we know he's struggling with these issues. So I mean, I'm not on the jury and I haven't seen all the information, but I have a good suspicion what my verdict will be.
Well, I think that if what we've seen so far, the evidence and the quotations of the evidence, because it's obviously not being live broadcast because of the nature of the crimes, it's child pornography. So of course there has to be a right to keeping the child safe, even if the child has already been abused. He, of his own admission, admits to there being 5 girls that he abused when he was a teenager. He admits that. And he says 4 of them were his sisters. He says that when he was singing at church or something, singing at home, he had one of the girls on his lap and was touching her. you know, he admits all of that himself. That's his descriptions. He then, in this particular case, when he's being arrested, he says, "Oh, are you here because of the child pornography?" So he's quite open, it seems, with the fact that he's a criminal. And it doesn't seem that anybody else is taking it seriously, other than, of course, the prosecution, who are trying to prosecute this young man without the help of anyone else around him, or anyone who should be keeping him accountable by saying, "You're clearly not managing your condition, whatever your condition is. You need to be held to account, locked up, and removed from the situation." And I felt quite ill because, of course, he's got 7 children, including daughters, of the same age at which he was molesting his sisters and looking at material of those girls, and obviously getting sexual gratification from seeing that material of those children. And then you have children that age. You know, it worries. It's scary to think that people are just leaving this young man without saying prosecute, lock up. You know, he's obviously not it's not working. What you're doing isn't working.
It is. And I think another factor I think that is scary in this case is, as you point out, just how normal it seems to be for him.
Yeah.
And what I find scary is that a lot of abusers often have a background of abuse. And the fact that this seems so normal to him would lead me to question what exactly has been going on in his life.
Right.
And that's not to excuse what has happened.
No, but there are explanations for what happened, not excuses.
Right. And I will be asking questions as a parent myself. Listen, if one of my children were to abuse another one, there's body parts, somebody paying, right? I don't care if you're my child or not. I have a responsibility to protect all of my children. And so the reticence of the parents to protect his sisters just causes me to question, what is the life of one, the health of one, the well-being of one, more important and greater than that of 4? So, as I said, I have a lot of questions surrounding this.
Yeah, and you know, I think we could probably talk at great length about it, and I would say we'll wrap it up here. But it's, you know, for those of you that are following the case, and there are a number of places where you can actually follow the case and look up all of these information, they're all freely available. I think it's quite disturbing to see the men of the family out in support of him, and not in support of the women of the family. And there are questions being asked about the safety of the women of the family, especially because 2 of his sisters have been named as having to give evidence. And we don't know if that's for the prosecution or for the defense at this point. We didn't know that as the case closed up on Friday. That will come out in due time, of course, but they are on the list of people who have to give evidence. And knowing the background, you know, where is the support for these women? Where are the support for these humans who are having to endure this awful time? And yet still you have all of the men of the family coming out in support of this criminal. Name it what it is, right? He's a criminal. He confesses to the crimes, therefore you're a criminal. That's the way that works. Yeah, it's a really disturbing story. And I'm sure at some point when more details come out, we'll have something else to say. I'm going to skip over a story that we talked about earlier today, and I'm going to bring you a European story next. This was a piece done by an African analyst called Paul Melly in the BBC. The news story title is this. You'll enjoy this news story title. Why France faces so much anger in West Africa. That's the title. The strapline of which is, it all started so positively. Where have things gone wrong? Why does France now appear to be so unpopular?
What?
I'm not kidding. I'm really not kidding. That's the news story article in the BBC. You can look this up word for word. I wrote it down. Why France faces so much anger in West Africa by Paul Melly. He's the African analyst for the BBC. And the byline is, it all started so positively. Where have things gone wrong? Why does France now appear so unpopular in Africa? That is what it is.
Please tell me that's irony or sarcasm.
No, he goes on to explain it in a 3-part piece. This is the first part. French President Emmanuel Macron increased aid, returned stolen artifacts, reached out and left French troops in the country to help the people. Why have some of these things seeming to have turned a corner now, and it's all going wrong and he's receiving negative press? I mean, he has had some gaffes, you'll enjoy that word. He's had some gaffes, like demanding that the African leaders immediately leave Mali. Where was it? I can't remember all of the countries, but Mali was one of the countries. Immediately, all their country leaders they were summoned to Paris because a helicopter had fallen in battle with 15 French soldiers, despite the fact that there were hundreds of their own soldiers who were killed, but the 15 French soldiers were so important that the leaders of the country were demanded in Paris. He quickly retracted that, saying, I didn't realize I was being colonialist when I demanded you all turn up here at my whim because we lost a few soldiers in a battle that we started. Okay. So they have this bit where they talk about the fact that Emmanuel Macron is not a perfect person, but he is by far better than any of the previous presidents who had such a bad relationship with these African nations. Look at what good work he's been doing. And then it says, well, the final part, well, there are some questions that have been raised, i.e. the currency has been linked to the French currency, which means that the French control the worth, capital, and ability to take and debt of the country. The support for local dictators has been very clear, and there have been ill-chosen words. I love this bit. He says it's very complex, the rule of African nations, and there is a body called ECOWAS, which is set up in part by the French government, who are looking to have collaboration between the different West African countries. But what the young people and what the people on the ground there say is that this is just a way to keep dictators in power that we do not want. So we're not really wanting to work with ECOWAS. But, apparently it all went wrong for Emmanuel Macron because there's been some real backlash against France. So I know you're so surprised that there's been real backlash. I mean, he's done such good work at returning things that they stole and increasing aid when he's increasing debt and controlling their currency and its value, but he gives them the leftovers of France, so they should feel grateful, right? And he's left whole armies there just to help keep the peace. That's just what they're doing. They're not starting wars. They're just, that it's a fabulous piece in the BBC. Well done.
Listen, as I said, I'm glad that it was sarcasm and irony that was being used as a literary tool.
It wasn't sarcastic irony. He meant it literally.
That it all started so well.
Listen, I'm not joking. When you read it, it does not read like sarcasm at all.
Because here's the reality. There's nothing about France's involvement in Africa that started well. I mean, we can just go back to the beginning and say slave trade.
Listen.
There is nothing about France's involvement in Africa that began well.
Well, they wanted to, but his whole point was over Emmanuel Macron, and that's his whole point.
Listen, Emmanuel Macron started well. Exactly how did he start well? Because France as a nation on its ex-African colonies still holds rights to claim any natural resources found in the country, right? You've already touched on the fact that the currency is linked to the French bank. But on top of that, if African countries have to pay their money into the French central bank, and then when they want to get the money out, one, they're only allowed to take a percentage of it. So I think it's something like 10 to 20% of their own money are they
Yep.
allowed to take out. And even when they do, they're charged interest to take that money out.
Yes. It's a
Right?
full-out
So
corrupted system.
nothing about Emmanuel Macron started well, is going well, and until he comes out of these countries, gives them back control of their countries and their finances,
Oh gosh.
it will go well. Now, here's the thing: the armies are there simply to ensure that France's interests in those countries are protected. Those countries cannot tell those French troops to get out, and those French troops are leaving.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
So let's just be honest about this. And listen,
they did try. They were marching through Niger on their way to Mali, I think it is, and the government in Niger were like, "We don't want you coming through our country. Like, you need to stay out." Well, you can imagine how that ended.
Right? So, listen, Kagame over in Rwanda, listen, not a perfect leader. No world leader is going to be perfect. But he did the right thing in telling these Western countries, come out of my country, let us run our own country. And when they wanted to put sanctions on him because he said, no, we don't want your secondhand clothes because it's undermining our textile markets. Keep them. They wanted to put sanctions on this country. He said, put your sanctions on. I don't care. Keep your stuff. We don't want it. And now what's happened? The textile industry is growing and booming. And I think that is what is needed more within these African countries, you know. But it's hard for the for especially in particular for the ex-French colonial countries because their resources and their money is tied up in the French bank.
It is. And on top of that, we know from the history of Haiti and other island nations, that when the French finally leave, if they finally leave, they charge you for their lost earnings and put you in debt immediately, and you owe them. And so there is this awful, awful world system in which somehow you can take the people, the resources, the minerals, the oil, the everything from a nation, and then turn around and tell that nation, we're not giving you the profit that we made. We're not paying you back for anything that we did. And in fact, because now we are losing money, we can charge you because we're losing money. So now you owe us. And that somehow is allowed to stand as something that's reasonable. You know, I mean, this was a shocking news. For me, this was just, yeah, I could giggle at the irony of the stupidity of the article. And maybe he was using irony. I read it a couple times trying to siphon out the information. I did not find it ironic at all. It seemed very normal and serious. And I was just like, you can't be seriously telling me you cannot understand why West African nations are angry at the French and the French government and the current administration. It's really obvious. Like, it's why would they be happy with them? Like, what would they be doing? Like, I don't know. So that was my news stories for today. But you do enjoy the BBC News article if you get a chance. It is.
Listen,
I'm belief that it's ironic. I don't know about that.
I'm just going to say this: it is my view that colonialism never ended.
No, it changed. It rebranded.
It just
into capitalism.
And yeah.
It rebranded into capitalism and so-called democracy. And once it did that, we are insidious. It's insidious. It's everywhere. And it's, you know, I'm a former business studies teacher. So for me, I take this issue quite seriously. You know, having taught business studies, having taught economics, having taught accounting, and all of those, associated subjects, you see it quite simply being played out very easily. And the extremities of that you see within the American society, because of course they say that they're a free economy, completely free of government intervention. But when you see that, what that actually means is we don't care at what cost to the people that this comes at. You have no water, Flint, Michigan. You have no access to doctors who aren't motivated by pay. There's the stuff surrounding dope sick. What's that called now?
Oxycontin.
So on and so forth. Every single industry that is alive and well and so-called doing well in the American system is alive at the cost and the expense of the human. And that is capitalism. And it has been the white supremacist system since the beginning, but you just stuck what you would say is a sanitized label on it of calling it capitalism. And somehow I'm supposed to believe that this is good for me, that there are, market economies, and that if more people demand it, it lowers the price. At what cost does it lower the price again? Sorry.
Look,
come on now. We're not silly.
I say all the time that the United States is a socialist country if you're a big business.
Oh yeah. Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Because farmers get subsidies, airline companies get subsidies, automotive industries get subsidies. But when you come to talking about, hey, let's give the average person something like universal health care, no, that's socialism. Hey, when people are out of work, let's increase their out of work benefits. No, that's socialism. So you can give companies benefits, but not the individual average person. Okay. Yeah, you tell me how
You tell me
country
that's no.
doesn't employ socialism. It just doesn't employ socialism for the average person.
Indeed. Well, that's been the news for today. We are going to go on to another subject, which I'm going to let you lead on. We were discussing a news story a couple of weeks ago at the dinner table of a person who said, since learning about, it was a person of color, and they said, since learning about the depth of evil that happened in slavery, I can't help but listen to nursery rhymes in a different way. And she identified Bar Bar Black Sheep as one of those nursery rhymes, and she started to talk about the fact that she sat there going, now that I listen to it, it don't sound so innocent no more, knowing that they used African hair in their furniture, knowing that they used Black people to carry these things, and they still have this in their society today, in their archives today, so to speak. So our son said, is that true? What happened with the nursery rhymes? And asked us some questions. And although he doesn't watch the Darkside, thankfully he does know these conversations, which sparked a conversation between you and I about Brown Girl in the Ring. And I was banned from singing that song when I was a little girl, never allowed to sing Brown Girl in the Ring ever. And so you began to do a deep dive very kindly for us on the dark side of nursery rhymes. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew some of this, some of the origins of some nursery rhymes before we had this conversation, and I had mentioned it to you before.
Yeah.
Some of them. So, I mean, you talk about Bar Bar Black Sheep, so we might as well just kick off with that one. Before I do that, I just want to say that when it comes to a lot of nursery rhymes, the actual origins of these are actually unknown.
Mm.
And it's what scholars have been able to piece together, best guesses, things like that. So it's hard to say for the origins of a lot of them, but I also would say that because the origins are unknown, that the meanings of them change with time and location. And that brings us to Bar Bar Black Sheep. So I've got a cold and all of this, so it's not good. So you're gonna have to sing "Bar Bar Black Sheep" for the people, for the masses. So they and
I'm
just
sure they know
run
it.
with the lyrics.
None of y'all need me to be singing "Bar Bar Black Sheep." Surely y'all know this song. Like, come on now, y'all need me to sing "Bar
No,
Bar
we
Black."
need to make sure. We need to make
We
sure
need
that
to make sure.
people
Okay,
know.
let's see. I'll recite it. I don't know that I can sing it, but I'll recite it. I'm sure the people in the comment section are about to go off going, no, 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 please don't have her sing. Please don't have her sing. So Bar Bar Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full. 1 for the master, 1 for the dame, 1 for the little boy who lived down the lane.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So you, when you mentioned this and gave the introduction, you spoke about the history of it within the US and that it possibly related to slavery, and
Yeah.
how when they would shave the hair off of black people and use it as cushions in furniture and when they're upholstering things. So even now, when people go to repair like heirloom furniture and they open it up, they're taking out all this hair of black people. And so you spoke or you alluded to the fact that within the US, it's taken on this context.
Mm, mm. Really sickening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to suggest that that's not actually the original context. The original context predates, or the
Right.
original version of this actually predates that. So it's not to say that actually for the US, that's not the context that it took on, but
Right.
the original context of this was actually quite different. So it seems to go back to 1275 when, who was it? King. I think it was one of the Edwards. Let me see if I've got it in my notes. I don't, but I think it was one of the Edwards, one of the kings of England.
Okay.
He brought in a tax on wool because he needed a lot of wool for the army, and it was called the Great Custom. And so the actual oldest known lyrics of the song are actually a bit different to what you recited.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So the original or the oldest known lyrics actually go bar bar black sheep, and it's not now this could be just a simple how language has changed over time,
Mhm.
but the bar is spelled BAH. So it could
Okay.
quite possibly be a play on the sound of the word, but
Mhm.
also the sound people sometimes make out of exasperation. Bah.
Like bar humbug.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, in Old English, you would say bar humbug. So yeah,
Yes.
there's an association there at least for some of us.
Yes. Yes. So it goes bar bar black sheep. Have you any wool? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full. 2 for my master, 1 for my dame, and none for the little boy that lives in the lane.
It sounds more like a play on poverty than it does
Well,
anything else.
that's actually what it is.
Right, of
So
course.
what it speaks to is the heavy taxation that was put on the great custom of
Mhm,
1275, this tax that was put on the farmers,
mhm.
and they'd have to give 2 to the master, right?
Like the
And
king, king,
also
king, king.
because religion was such a big part of life at the time, they the illusion is that the dame is that they're speaking of is actually the church.
Ah, okay.
So I have to give 2 to the king, I have to pay my tithe and offering to the church, and that leaves none to give to the shepherd boy who was helping to raise the sheep. Hence why there's none for the little boy that lives in the lane. So
So equally as disturbing.
yes, it was
Yeah,
actually a piece of political commentary, or appears
yeah.
to be a piece of political commentary.
And I guess to that end, then it lives up to its name in each time that you sing it, because of course, as you say, if the context that it's next sung in is the USA in slavery, then of course, literally the boy that lives in the lane has nothing. Like he is literally nobody and nothing, and you're literally shaving the heads of these people. and treated them as less than human, as if they're sheep. And so that commentary works equally as well in the USA for slavery as it does in Middle England for the poverty class issues that were abounding then. Okay, cool. Just doesn't fill me with joy. Won't be singing Bar Bar Black Sheep anymore. Cool. Next.
Okay, so let's go with, we can do This Old Man or Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary.
Oh, I don't know Mary, Mary, Quite. Let's do that one. Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary. How does your garden grow?
Yeah.
I don't know what happens after that. I can't remember it so well. It's not one that I remember so well.
Silver bells, cockle shells, and three maids all in a row.
Yes, there you go. Okay. So that seems fairly innocuous. I mean, and weird.
Yeah, you would think. You would think. I mean, Mary sounds like quite a horticulturalist.
She sounds quite contrary. She sounds like she's a little bit of an oddbod. But cool. I will leave Mary alone. She's in her garden. Well, it says Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary, so I imagine she's quite a little bit of an oddbod. She does, she's unique.
Right. And so this one actually seems to allude to Bloody Mary. Mary, daughter of Henry VIII.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. That's
Now,
quite a different story.
Yep. So now you have Henry VIII, who
Mhm.
famously
Has
is
many wives.
yes, but also what did he lead to? Birth of
Oh, the Church of England.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Now Mary was a Catholic.
Oh yeah. Okay. I see what you did there.
She wanted to bring Catholicism back.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
So
Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary. Okay.
During her reign, which I think was about 4 years, she famously killed at least 300 well-known Protestants. Okay. So
pretty sure I studied history. I can't even remember these stories. It's terrible.
Yeah, as I said, it was I can't remember the exact number, but it was close to 300 religious dissidents.
Although to be fair, they were all killing people back then, so
yes, but these were specifically
religious
reasons,
dissidents. Yep.
Right.
Gotcha.
So now, with that bit of history, now to put this into context. Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary, how does your garden grow?
With the blood of people that I've killed?
Right. So actually, garden is actually an allegory for graveyards.
Oh, goodness me. Great. Excellent. This really is the dark side of nursery rhymes.
Right?
Why are nursery rhymes so morbid? Do we not have good nursery rhymes that aren't morbid?
Who knows?
No?
So, Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary, how did your garden grow? How does your grave, or in other words, Mary, look at how you're making the graveyards grow.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? With silver bells and cockle shells.
With the bones of people.
No. So the silver bells are said to actually be thumb screws, torture devices. And cockle shells are another torture device that they use to attach to male genitalia. And cockle shells, use your imagination.
Why are we singing this song? No, people need to scrap this one. Okay, next song.
I haven't finished. It gets better. So we've got the graveyards, we've got the silver bells, we've got the cockle shells. What comes next?
I don't remember. I'm tormented. What happens next? That's no help me, people.
3 maids all in a row.
Oh yeah, 3 maids all in a row. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Now that seems quite innocent, doesn't it?
No, nothing seems innocent anymore. Good Lord, I'm just like,
You
I'm holding
answered correctly. Right. So before the guillotine became popular in use for beheading people, they used to use something called the maiden. And maids was a slang term for the maiden. So with 3 maidens all in a row.
3 killing devices all in a row.
3 beheading devices all in a row.
Jesus. And you know when Europeans look down on other people as being savage, and then you hear their songs. Oh no, somebody. Okay, go on next.
Right?
Next.
So there's that. That's one possible definition of maids. There's also another possible definition,
Oh no.
right? And well, it's kind of bleak, but it's not grim like the reason that I just gave, or the possible definition that I just gave.
Okay.
And this is that Mary was well known for her numerous miscarriages.
Oh.
So it's possible that it's actually alluding to her miscarriages.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, but not quite as horrible as having your head chopped off. You know, I mean, it sounds
Oh,
it sounds callous,
horrible.
but
I mean, celebrating. I mean, I know she wasn't nice, but she was still a human. I mean, celebrating the. Yeah. That. Oh no, it's all. All right. Okay. No. All right. My stomach feels ill enough.
it's all
Thank you.
grim.
Next.
However you want to slice it and dice it, the entire thing is grim.
It's just grim. So no one should be singing that. Okay. Good.
Yeah, I'm just look. I know I'm just out taking out people's childhoods, right? So if you want to come at me, come at me. I don't mind.
Yeah, we're gonna just ruin some more. Okay, so let's ruin some more nursery rhymes then. Go on.
Okay, so I gave you a choice there. I can give you another choice still of where you
Okay.
want to go. You can have This Old Man, or you can have Rockabye Baby.
Well, what, like Rockabye Baby, isn't that the one where you're in a treetop and the baby, like the wind blows and the baby? I mean, that just is grim. Full stop. Like even the words of it are grim. So I don't know that really needs it. Does that need to explain? Is it worse than what it sounds like? We stuck the baby in a tree and the baby drops to the ground and dies. I mean, it is really grim.
Yeah.
And the other one was This Old Man. This old man, he played something. He played knick-knack on his knee with a knick-knack paddywhack, give a dog a bone. This old man came rolling home.
Yep.
Well, now this is quite a British one, isn't it? Do people outside of Britain know this one?
I believe so.
All right, well, let's give that a try then. This old man.
Look,
if y'all don't help me in the comment section, y'all need to start picking. So I'm just going to pick This Old Man. That's all I'm saying.
Right. So This Old Man is actually, yeah. I mean, even in the lyrics of it, you should know that this is wrong. You and I had a conversation about this, and I remember I asked you, "What is wrong with it?"
Yeah, see, and I went completely in left field, and you were like, "No, that's really disturbing. You need to come back a bit to the middle." And I was like, "Oh, there's another way of disturbingly taking this. Oh, okay, go ahead then."
It's quite obvious in the lyrics.
This old man, he played. What does he play?
I don't know. He played one. He played something on my thumb
With a knick-knack, paddywhack. Give a dog a bone. Oh, I remember. This was about the Irish, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I remember. Yeah, this was disturbing enough. So this one shouldn't be sung by anyone because it's really racist towards the right. It's really prejudiced towards the Irish people. Like it's really bad.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't, and I don't think you would know that culturally because I would never have been I would have guessed some of it. Like I understand the paddy connotation, and I know that's an Irish term, so I would have known that. But I don't know that any non-native English speaker from outside of the UK would have picked up on those undertones. So here's your education, Mr. Storm. Go ahead, tell us.
Well, see, I would disagree with you with that. I think it's known within a British context and a US context. And I say
I don't know enough about US Irish people.
Because there's such a large population of Irish descendants there, and the prejudices that followed them with the British would have it crossed the Atlantic.
Yes, that's true. That's
And
true.
so
Okay,
I believe
maybe they would have
actually
known.
would
As I
know.
say, well, the reason I say wouldn't have known is just because from what I understand of people and language, some of these are really quite nuanced words that you know you could use. You could be a native English born and raised in the country, but if you're not historically embedded within, you may not know some of these meanings. Anyway, tell the people why they shouldn't sing this song. Let's get to it.
Well, this song originates, from what I can tell, from the period of the Irish famine or the Great. I think the Irish refer to it as the Great Hunger,
Hmm.
and this is where a potato blight wiped out potato
Yeah,
crops in Europe.
yeah.
Um, and this is a song about Irish people having to beg for food or to collect knickknacks for food.
Hmm.
And so they're speaking about an old Irish man who's begging. And it's said that the knickknack is possibly a tune of the time,
Mm.
right? Um, but you get to a point, so he's playing knickknack on whatever, okay,
Hmm.
a tune or a rhythm.
Hmm.
And then you get to the line in the song, paddywhack, okay?
Beat him
So
up.
beat the Irish person, right? Give a dog a bone. Well, who's the dog in the story,
Irish person.
right? And this old man goes rolling home.
It's a horrible, a really horrible song.
So basically, you've kicked him in the gutter on the way home.
It's a horrible, horrible song. It's really, it really, there is nothing redeeming about that.
No. And as I said, I mean, I understand children grow up singing it. It can be quite a catchy tune for children, and you wouldn't necessarily know
No,
the
as I said,
historical facts that go along with it. And I think actually one of the things to bear in mind is that I said the Great Hunger was caused by a potato blight that ravaged Europe, and it did.
mm, mm,
But actually, the starvation of hundreds and thousands of Irish people, and their deaths, was actually not just down
eventually,
to the potato blight, but actually economic policies, intentional economic policies of the British government.
yeah. Preventable.
Right? So when you're singing this song, you're actually singing about people who are suffering, who
Mm,
were terrorized and victimized by
mm,
the government.
mm,
And when they're trying to survive, you're actually singing about abusing them. And I guess the direct correlation that you could give today would be of migrants that are trying to get somewhere safe, to find somewhere to eat, to find somewhere where they can live in peace and just survive and make it day to day. This song is, if you were to bring it into modern context, they would make a song about immigrants today that are trying to cross like the British Channel, the English Channel.
and how people let them drown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or want to push them back to sea. Pretty batal.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Okay. All right. Next one. Let's ruin some more childhood songs of people.
Okay. Rockabye Baby. Uh,
Baby in the
Muffin Man.
treetop. The Muffin Man. Now this one, yeah, see, this one is disturbing because this one is about the killer, right? Which I think is really just wrong. All right, let's do Rockabye Baby because I think to me it just seems like it's wrong. I remember singing this like instinctively and being like, this song is really wrong. Just I'm not singing this song just because you hear it so frequently. Rock-a-bye baby in the treetop, when the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will go. Hold on, wait a minute. We talk about killing babies. Like what
And,
the hell?
and, and, and you see movies in which loving mothers are cradling the
Cradling their
baby,
babies, singing this.
humming the song or singing it
So
gently.
disturbing. We're talking about the baby dying, right? Like, that's the conclusion of the song. Like, what is this? And I
Well,
remember instinctively, because the movies play on you and you sing it, and then going instinct, like, I'm consciously not singing this song. The song is disturbing. So tell me the other reason why I shouldn't sing the song.
actually, there's two possible explanations, or two main explanations that people seem to have come up with this. And actually, the first one is fairly innocent.
Oh, really?
Actually,
The
so in
baby
the
dies.
1700s in the UK, there was a family. The parents were called Kate and Luke Kenyon, and
Okay.
apparently they made their home in this massive yew tree,
Okay.
right? And they would hang the children out in it in like hammocks to sleep. And the tree allegedly still exists in Derbyshire, although it was
Really?
destroyed. Although it was destroyed by vandals in the 1930s. This is said to be the tree that
That
is
this song is based on.
that the song is based on.
Am I to assume that a child died from this tree?
No, no,
Oh,
no,
no.
nobody knows. That's just basically the story. This
Oh,
family built a home in a tree, and they used to put the children out in the winter. And they actually say what the song is saying. Look, if the wind gets too strong, then the tree could break. You know, but there's the part of the explanation also was that the the branches of the tree were so big that they carve out beds. So when the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and the branch will
okay.
come down. And the branch was the actual cradle, and the child will come down with it.
Okay.
So that's the innocent meaning. Um, the other possible meaning to it actually involves some of the Dutch viewers. Um, and so it's an allegory for political unrest at the time of King James II.
Okay.
And so there is rumors and suggestions that he smuggled a baby boy into the birthing room so that he could have a Catholic heir.
What do you mean he smuggled a baby boy into the birthing room?
So you smuggle a boy in and then carry him out to say, "This is my son." So first of all, we're talking about you stole somebody's child or bought somebody's child. Um, and we're gonna say, "Look, this is
No
my
one
son."
else going to comment on this madness. This is crazy. What are you saying right now?
Right?
You
So
smuggled. So his wife was pregnant. She was having a baby. It was pronounced a girl, so they stuck a boy in so that it would be pronounced a boy. But obviously, you had to steal a boy in order to. Well, you didn't have a boy, so
right,
you had
but
to be.
yeah, so we're talking about seeing a boy, but let's also not forget you had to discard a girl.
So there's a discarded girl. There's a. Oh, this really just okay. Go on. It's really
Right?
disturbing. I can't even. I don't even know what to say to
So,
this.
my baby on the treetop when the wind blows, the cradle will rock when the bell breaks. Right. So the wind that
Hmm.
is being spoken of, you may have heard this within some of your history books studying theology, the Protestant wind.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay. 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 No, this is all disturbing. Just let this one go. Okay, this is a really disturbing. This
So
is
the
this.
wind in this is meant to allude to the Protestant wind and the Protestant movement, which was sweeping Europe at the time. Okay. And in the Netherlands,
Oh, you guys get a look into? Hey.
yeah, they get a look in. James' daughter was married to William of Orange.
Ah, okay. I see
Okay.
what happens there. I see. I
And
see the alignment.
they were Protestant. And so you have in 1688, he is deposed as king by his daughter and son in law. Okay. Um,
And
it's
this song
called,
is about that.
right. And in English, it was known as the Glorious Revolution. And in Netherlands, it's the, I'm going to butcher the language like I always do, Glorious Overtocht.
Gloriosa Overtocht.
I believe that's how it's pronounced.
I can't see it, people, so don't come for me. I'm just trying to work it out from what he said. But because it's a G, I imagine it's Gloriosa.
Yeah, Gloriosa. Yeah, could be. So the song is basically expressing the hope that James will be overthrown and his son will die. His stolen son will die. His allegedly stolen son will die.
Oh, anyway, you know what? Are there any more nursery rhymes you'd like to ruin for the people? Because I see the hour's done, and I'm like, we've ruined a good few.
Right. So okay. Well, a quick one we can run through. Here we go around the Mulberry Bush.
Yeah. Okay, here
Go
we go
on.
around the Mulberry Bush, the Mulberry Bush, the Mulberry Bush. Here we go around the Mulberry Bush on a cold and frosty morning.
Right. Okay. So seems all quite innocent, right?
I mean, yeah, it's cold, it's frosty, there's a bush in the middle, you run around it. I don't know why you would do this activity, but apparently it's like a thing.
Right. Till I tell you who's running around it.
Okay.
Right. So it's actually a song about convicts at like the most notorious prison in the UK historically. It was known as Monster Mansion because they locked up the worst of the worst of the worst there. And it was
Okay.
actually singing about the prisoners. There was a mulberry bush on the grounds that the prisoners used to walk around in the morning to do their exercise.
Are there any good nursery rhymes? Should have been the question, but this is the dark side. So we apparently found all the bad ones.
Well, I guess there's three blind mice.
Three blind mice, three blind mice. What is that one? Yeah, okay. Well, that's good.
No.
Don't they cut off their tails?
Yeah. And there's actually more meaning to that than just that. It's not about mice.
Do I even want to know what it's about?
Probably not.
No, probably not. Hey, we didn't do Brown Girl in the Ring.
We didn't do Brown Girl in the Ring. As I said, the Muffin Man is a fantastic one.
The Muffin Man is about an alleged serial killer?
Yes.
In the UK?
Yes.
In Muffin Lane or something like that?
Not quite.
Okay, go on.
No, but I think it's interesting because, as I said, there's actually no way to substantiate the origins of this. And so whether it's true or not is unknown. And apparently there's a Dutch version
of the Muffin Man.
Of the Muffin Man about a muscle man from Scavener.
Okay. And that was a serial killer too?
I have no idea. I don't know what the Dutch origins of it are. I
okay, well, if you're Dutch and you're watching this, please do let us know if you have a song. If that is a nursery rhyme about a muscle man from Scavener who we don't know what he did, but in the English version,
muscle, I don't mean bodybuilder. I mean like a fisherman.
Muscles, yeah, like fisherman. A muscle man. No, I knew that you meant muscles, actually. I did. I mean, because you said Scavener, so I knew that you meant by the coast.
Okay.
See, look at me knowing. Oh, isn't that fun? So, yes. Okay. Right. So nursery rhymes are really disturbing, and these are the stories we tell. It's kind of like the fairy tale thing, I could think, because we've made in the 21st century, in the 20th century, in the 20th century, they made fairy tales into these sanitized versions of this happy ever after story. But the actual real Hans Christian Andersen and other fairy tales are actually legal. Yeah, they're legal stories, how laws were passed around, particularly in Germany. And those
they're about moral codes. They were
moral codes, yeah. And they're really grim. They're really awful. Like there's no redeeming factors. And of course, we continue the happily ever after in the 21st century, but we are now aware of the fact that they were about legal. They're one of the ways that you write legal codes was to tell these stories, and to enshrine them.
Yeah, to teach local moral codes
to people, to hand them down as an oral tradition. Yeah, to people, so it's easily remembered. And it seems like nursery rhymes have an even grimmer way of doing that. They don't seem to have the morality attached to them. It seems more celebrating the negative things of life. It's really quite disturbing.
Yeah, look, I think what we should acknowledge is that a lot of these nursery rhymes actually have quite catchy tunes.
They do indeed.
And I think we probably need to recognize that these are probably drunken songs that were probably being sung in bars and pubs because the tunes are quite catchy and simple like that of the time. Okay.
Mhm.
And so, as I said, a lot or some of them seem to be political commentary,
Right.
and you couldn't at that time necessarily come out and speak politically what was on your mind.
Right.
So, although we're talking about the dark side of these, and actually, some of the stories are quite grim and some of the possible meanings are quite grim, there is a light side in that actually this is a way of communicating messages and expressions of
Mhm.
ideas that you probably and possibly couldn't have said publicly.
And that's a powerful and important part of resistance, and I guess we endorse that kind of behavior on the dark side too. We sometimes have to sing about our, need for freedom, and it's a tradition that exists all over the world, and yeah,
Yeah,
you
I mean, you have, like, some of the Negro spirituals and things like that that, are accepted we call or are called now Negro spirituals, are actually coded language for telling people where the Underground Railroad is passing through next and things like that. So as I said, for me, I just say, look, yeah, it's grim, but I think we need to bear in mind perhaps some of the context and history of the time and
mm,
understand, although we are looking back on it with 21st century eyes, saying this is grim, this is perhaps some of the only ways these things could have been spoken about. Because I mean, let's take the Mary Mary Quite Contrary, for example. We know that publicly she is killing dissidents.
so if
So
you said anything, you gonna die. Like,
you put potentially put your head under one of the maidens in the song.
yeah,
So you put
yeah,
it in coded language and you sing about it.
yeah. No, I think it's a good way of looking back. I think too frequently when we look back with 21st century eyes, we look back with an air of we're so right and you're so wrong, and we're so enlightened, and look at you ignorant people back then. And actually, I think that we're quite arrogant when we do that, because when we look to the left and right, and we did this at the beginning with the news stories, when you look to the left and the right, the news is not pretty up here either. Like, in so-called enlightened era, we're not pretty. Those problems have not disappeared, and in fact, they have become insidious. And if we look at the coded language of our time in underground music, in rap music, in um I've forgotten. I went to go for a genre from England and it just totally lost me.
Trap, grime.
There you go. Thank you, grime. That was what I was thinking of. Some of some of it is coded language for talking about things that really are a bother to the 21st century challenges that we have now. And so I guess we can look back very arrogantly and say, "Oh, that's grim. We should never use these songs and they're awful." But as you say, they're part of the resistance that people would have had against their governments. And we are all too familiar in the 21st century with songs that need to be sung or chants that are said. Black Lives Matter. Very simple statement. Doesn't need to be shrouded in language, but it seems to need explaining every single time somebody says it. Hands up, don't shoot. Things like that are chanted. So we're very familiar with all of those things in the 21st century.
Yeah. So as I said, there are more out there. And it's an interesting rabbit hole to go down.
It's interesting because I think it's interesting just because it takes you into this world of resistance. And what does it mean to resist and to stand against the evils that stand in the world? And sometimes it means singing a catchy tune to explain to other people that what's happening around you is wrong and it's wicked and it's evil. Sometimes that's what that looks like.
Yep. And I would say this, perhaps the fact that the meanings of these and the origins of these have been lost, or for a lot of these have been lost over time, is perhaps not down to chance and it's not by accident,
Mm,
because I'm pretty sure that many people that are in power now will hope that the meaning of Black Lives Matter as a chant is lost in years to come.
yeah. Well, We definitely touched on the dark side this evening. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for journeying with us. Thank you, Mr. Storm, as always, for bringing the insights and the wisdom as we look back in history. We will see you next week. I think it's our second to last one. Is it next week? We're getting real close to the last one. I know that for sure. The end of this season is coming, folks. We will do, let me just get my calendar out very quickly. So we have 2 more to go for this season, and then we take our year-end break, and we're back in the new year with a new season. But until then, we will see you next week, Sunday, 9 o'clock Central European time, or watch it back whenever you can. Share it with your friends and families. We appreciate every share, every like, and all of the discussion and positive feedback that we get. So share, subscribe, like, do the thing. Hit the buttons. We thank you for journeying with us. Mr. Storm?
Yep. Laters.
Peace. Alrighty then. See you, folks. Don't shop too much. Watch out for your shopaholic friends. It's Christmas season. People are out there. It's dangerous. Peace out.